So today we got a question from a viewer who is worried that if he chooses God's path for his life, that he's going to leave behind the people that he loves and cares for the most. But before we get into that, if you're looking for some clarity or direction on your situation, or just another brother to hold space for you while you allow your own revelations to come through, then you know what to do. Book a session with me, your old Uncle E, by clicking the link down below. So today's question goes, Elliott. The only time in my entire life when I feel whole is when I'm in nature and working. I'm 27 years old and work my career in white-collar jobs, which has caused my nervous system to be overstimulated on a daily basis. All my energy is being drained from staring at a screen all day and has led me down a path of compulsive pornography use. I've recently decided to become an arborist to fulfill my biological need to work. I feel like I've molded myself to be what other people want me to be, my family, my girlfriend, etc. And I fear that stepping into the shoes that God gave me will push people away. Great question, man. And it really boils down to the battle between the opinions of men and God's purpose for your life, God's will. And in every instance, 100% of the case, when we follow God's will, we're following our perfect blueprint, the plan that God had for your life. It is my belief that just like with an acorn or the seed of any kind of plant, within it is the blueprint for its perfection. Once that seed meets the requirements for its growth, it becomes what it's intended to be. And the same is for you and me. There is a perfect blueprint, a perfect seed for our life, a perfect way for us to be. And as long as those needs are met, and they're always met, in fact, God knows what's required for the seed to bloom, and he puts it in a circumstance, puts it in a situation, puts you in a circumstance where you are forced to grow. And that isn't always like a beautiful thing or like a fun thing. Like a lot of times, as opposed to say a tree, our growth is internal. Our growth requires us to overcome prejudices and judgments and fears and hopes and dreams, things that we hold internally, preferences that we've gathered either from our experience with other people, our experiences in our own life, or have just been given these boundaries and these rules to live our lives by that actually have nothing to do with the perfect blueprint that God has for you. And so here you are working your whole life, you say, as a blue-collar worker, you're 27 years old, and you realize that the path that you've taken may have been compelled by people, by circumstances, by what you've been told, but it doesn't seem to match up. It doesn't seem to line up with the divine action in your heart. And this is where discernment comes in, right? Because God is constantly providing us information. He's constantly unfolding our path. He's constantly showing us what the next step for our life must be. But intermingled with that, right? Like the parable of the wheat and the tares, right? Like there's this story where Jesus talks about a farmer speaking to his assistant about the crop, which has been polluted. There's a perfect crop. The wheat is within the crop, but an enemy went and sowed tares within it. So in other words, weeds. So you've got the fruitful plant, but you've also got the weeds with it. That's like what we're dealing with a lot of times. A lot of times when we're seeking to harvest the growth, the fruits of God's work in our life, it's intermingled with the tares, with the weeds. And so there's a lot of confusion. Oftentimes, or all the time, God's plan for us is simple. It's never more grandiose or extravagant than what's in front of us. It's usually very simple. But when what's in front of us, what's been placed in front of us, doesn't come from his plan, doesn't come from the divine action in your heart, comes from the fears, hopes, and dreams of your parents, of the school, of the music, of the movies, the media, of what women think they want, well, then it's a hard time. You're going to have a hard time separating the fruit from the tares. And then that becomes our job. Our real job in life It's not to find God. It's not to discover God. It's not to discover God's plan or purpose for our life. Our job is to get rid of the tares, get rid of the weeds, get rid of the distractions. It is a process of removal, becoming your strongest self, becoming the man that God has planned for you to be, living the life that God has planned for you, for your own evolution, and for the growth of the people around you, are going to require a stripping away, a taking away of the thoughts that have been embedded in your mind, that have been given to you from the movies, from the music, from the media, from the schools, from your parents, but also the emotions that tend to those hopes, fears, and dreams, those thoughts. The emotions that are both elating, right? The excitement of having something that is forbidden, right? Oftentimes I call these your troll goals, right? These are goals that you have, essentially have chosen out of the options that actually deter you, move you further away. I mean, there's a saying that God gathers and Satan scatters. The more scattered we feel, the more options we have, the more confusion we experience, the more scattered we are. And then you end up with emotions that are tugging at you from different ends. You got one end of the emotion that's fear-based, that says that if I don't do what people want me to do, then I'm not going to be loved the way I'd like them to love me. And it's also wrapped in all kinds of confusion about what other people are telling you, or what your own thoughts and your fears have concocted about your true path in life. The question then becomes, do I do what I think I'm supposed to do, what people have been telling me to do, what my girlfriend finds pleasing, or do I do the one thing that Jesus Christ reminds us of, and that is littered throughout the Bible, which is to fear God, to seek God's will first. Seek the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. If you seek the kingdom of God, if you seek that which is first, if you seek the true blueprint for your life, the true plan for your life, the truth about who you are and what you're here for, then everything else will be added to you, because God knows exactly what you need in order to fulfill that goal, to fulfill that dream, to fulfill that purpose that he has for you in your life, in only your life. That's what makes you so unique. That's what makes people so unique, in that God has never placed two people in the same exact circumstances, with the same exact DNA, with the same exact goal, the same exact purpose, the same exact plan and mission for his life. God will place you with what you need, where you need to be in order to fulfill that. You know, you mentioned that you've got one fear. And that fear is, stepping into the shoes that God has gave me. And the fear is that it will push people away. When what I'm describing as it relates to the words of Christ and seeking first his kingdom, to the statement that we should fear God, has everything to do with paying attention to, paying very close attention to. When you're afraid, there's a physiological response in your body. Notice it when you're dealing with the judgments and the respect of other people. The eyeballs, like when you're afraid of something, right? If you were ever being hunted, or if you ever see an animal that's being hunted, they're hyper vigilant, they're hyper alert, they're paying attention, their eyes are wide open, they're listening a lot closer. They're listening with an intensity that allows them to pick up even the most imperceptible pieces of information, that their environment, that God is showing them to help them survive, or whatever his plan is for them in the moment. And so to fear God is not the same type of fear that you have for other people. The fear that you have from other people is their judgment. The fear that you have for other people are their fears, their hopes, their dreams, their own psychologically constructed bullshit. But the fear for God is very different. Fear for God is more of a physiological response. It's not about harboring worry or hate or fear in the way that we do, that something bad is going to happen to us. But fear in that, if I'm not paying very close attention, I might miss. It's so much harder to miss God's plan for us because he's not shouting from the rooftops like your emotions, like your thoughts, and like the people in your life. So my man, if you want to live the fully self-actualized life, you want to live the life that God planned for you, you want to live a life that you are suited for, that you were built for, that you will be proud of, my man, you have to ignore other people. You can't live for your parents. You damn sure can't live for your girl. If you're living for your girl, not only will you be resentful because you've given up the life that God planned for you for this woman, but she will resent you as well because a woman loves and respects and follows a man that has a mission. But if you make her fears, her hopes, her dreams your mission, then she's going to not respect you. And she's going to wonder, what do I need you for? And I can do this on my own. And this scaredy cat who's following my lead is not worthy to lead me, to show me, to guide me, to protect me. And so she's going to bounce too, man. So you only have allegiance to one thing and one thing only, and that is the divine action. That is abandonment to divine providence. That is paying attention to what's in front of you, doing what God puts in front of you, and listening only to his voice as it's produced in you. Done.